Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages, welcome to our Saturday show here on the Paranormal Portal. I'm absolutely thrilled to be here. I'm your host, Brent Thomas, and I hope you're ready for a couple hours of fun-filled paranormal entertainment, or at least some kind of entertainment. It'll probably be paranormal not only in subject matter, but just in the things that we do on this show. Because we are a bit paranormal here, but by we, of course, I am not alone here in talking about my multiple personalities. I am talking about my good friend and co-host, Mr. Don Longbeard.
Shh.
Be very quiet.
I have to wear my glasses tonight.
Do you?
Yeah, I can't see anything anymore.
Well, you look smarter.
I'm getting...
Just saying, glasses. Glasses make everybody look smarter, don't they?
I don't know.
That's what I heard. That's what I heard. How you guys doing? Look at all these names coming into there. Piling in like crazy. Piling in like we're selling something here.
Hey, the only worst thing...
I don't even know what the hell you just said.
You said glasses made me look smarter.
I said they did. I didn't say that you weren't. Just throwing that
what
out
is
there.
with that?
I'm just,
Wow.
it's not books, the cover of the book, the whole deal. So,
So basically you're saying you open the book and it's blank pages.
I'm not
Thanks,
saying
buddy.
that at all. There's all kinds in those pages, all kinds of stuff in those pages. But special hello to Miss Nikki Colombo, who just preceded us on TFR.
Yes, absolutely.
Great to be following you, ma'am. Hope everything's good down under. Enjoy that warm weather, because we don't have anything like that up here. Just saying. Don't feel bad for us, though.
Naysay's cheating.
Why?
He says, doesn't look any smarter to me. You're cheating, Naysay.
He sees clearly, though. the naysay sees clearly. But anyway, welcome, everybody. And not really anybody in the TFR chat room tonight that I can say hello
that's
to.
too bad.
Lucky's there, though. Hello,
Hi,
Lucky.
Lucky.
Love you. Love you bunches. Ken Rotman's in there.
Kid.
Then Psycho Dave 321's in there. So that's
Psycho
like
Dave?
There's like 3 people in there.
Wow,
So
well, that's...
I guess they had enough of us.
the important ones are there, though. Lucky and...
Yeah, well, the core is there.
Yeah.
More might come in. We'll be waiting for you. But, Don,
Yes.
how's our YouTube crowd looking?
Wow, all of our crowd is cool. TFR,
Yeah,
YouTube,
they are.
the podcast. And so here we go with that. Is Beth's here, Blondie Lady, Cameron F., Naysay, Cha-Cha's here, Chris Jarvis, Ms. Deb Varner. Wow, she went an hour plus over last night.
Yeah, she's a machine.
Wow. Heather's here. Isaac. Hi, Isaac. Kit's here. Lisa's here. Linda's here. Moggion's here. Renee Cruz. Suzanne is here. Paisley from the Spaces Between. The Rotman is here. And so is that guy down at the bottom in the blue.
Is that you?
That'd be me.
Is Duke in here? Yeah, Duke's here. He just said hello. Yo.
Oh, yeah. He just came in. Yep. Just as I closed the page.
Yeah.
Let's see. Daniela's here. Hi, Daniela.
Hello, Daniela.
Hello.
Hello, Miss Daniela Iolo. Thank you.
Now he's just trying to show
I'm just showing it off now because I know how to say it. I've trained my palate to forge the
There
name.
you go.
But welcome, everybody, and hope you're all ready for a good show. I hope you're ready for one. Not that you're going to get one, but but I hope you're ready.
Well, Danielle says show off.
I just feel more worldly now that I can pronounce
It's like this Spanish this twist to it.
Really?
The double L's and the... Never mind.
I'm just
I'm just going to go sit over here.
sit quietly over there with you and your glasses.
Because that's the smart thing to do.
That's what a smart person would do. I'm just saying.
Oh, my.
But yeah, if you haven't come to the Paranormal Portal before, this is about as good as it gets, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay, so it's more Italian than Spanish.
It is,
Yes, that would make... Actually, that
I
makes
actually
more
knew
sense,
that,
yeah.
but I wasn't going to flex.
Show off.
I wasn't going to say anything, but she volunteered it, so
There you go.
I'll let her fill in the blanks. But I got a few things I want to go through first of all. But how you doing, Don? Everything good?
Doing good, yeah. Nothing exciting going on.
Okay.
Just grinding away, trying to make the portal a thing.
It is a thing.
It is a thing.
It's already a big thing. Sometimes it's a big pain in the butt.
That's a thing.
But sometimes it's an amazing thing.
Absolutely.
Last night was amazing. Special thank you to Mrs. Deborah Varner, who was here with us and did readings for 3 hours and 15 minutes last night. So it was another long run for her. We had wall-to-wall calls the whole night through. The phone queue was amazing. It was just peppered. The whole page was just full.
And did our chat crew stay with us after that?
A lot of them did.
Yeah.
A lot of them stayed for quite a long time.
Excellent.
So, yeah, we got some dedicated listeners. So, thank you to all of you who are here, and thank you to all the callers from the show last night. Excuse me.
Did we have any really good calls?
Well, all of them were really
well,
good.
I mean, really. Okay.
What are you trying to say? I mean, they were all really good. It was really cool, and everybody was really respectful and didn't take 30 minutes of a call. They were all very conscientious to each other, and we moved through the list really well.
Wow, nice.
So I we've had long hold times before, but I think we didn't get much longer than 60 minutes when the queue was full.
Right.
It was like the longest hold time was like 60 minutes. So for our show, that was really good because we would have like 80, 90 minutes before, and we would get to them, but. Everybody did great. It was a great show, and if you haven't seen it, you can check it out on our archives or either on tfrlive.com or you can check it out on our YouTube. Either way, but it was a long, productive night. But I got a bunch of listener emails to get through tonight right off the bat.
That's awesome.
It is really cool. I've been getting notified by a lot of people sending in their stories and stuff, and it's for me personally, it's really one of my favorite parts of the show. I love seeing and hearing what you guys have seen and heard, and I learned something from every email. I seriously do. The first one I want to get to was placed as a comment on our Facebook for the Paranormal Portal. So I want to read that one first, and it had to do with let's see. I'm trying to remember what the subject matter was. I read it several days ago, but I was like, I'll have to read this on the show. So I remembered the story, but I'm trying to remember what it was about. I think it's some kind of a ghostly thing. Yeah, it is. Okay, so here's what she says, and this is a listener named Debbie, and she said, I can remember when I was around the age of 6 or 7 years old. It was midnight, and I woke up from sleeping and had to go to the bathroom, and my bedroom was at the very end of a long, narrow hallway. The bathroom wasn't far from my bedroom, just down the hall, and I get out of bed and walk to my bedroom door. It's dark, no lights are on, and something very tall, very wide, and blacker than the night was in front of me. I was so scared. I whispered to it, please, move away. I must use the bathroom. And I watch it back off from me. And I proceed to go to the bathroom, and it seemed to have left me alone. And I go back to my bed and go to sleep. I wake up the next morning and notice a floating 2x4 wood shelving floating above my body. I slip out from under it and stand up beside my bed, and then I watch the wood shelving vanish. Just vanished. Never would I tell my parents what I saw. My parents never witnessed anything in that old house. All of this took place in the 1960s. So she saw this huge shadow person, and she said, please move back. I need to go to the bathroom. And it did. It just like totally acquiesced, and that's really cool.
Yeah.
I find that story absolutely fascinating. And so thank you so much and not only that, she wakes up with the wood floating above her. She gets out of bed, stands next to her bed, and it disappears, just vanishes in front of her. So she saw it deport. That, I think, is just crazy because you don't ever hear those stories of people. Just very rarely do people see these deports happen when things are taken.
Right.
Or appearing, for that matter. But I think that's a really cool story.
That's so sexy.
Yeah, well, it's only I only shared it with you, Don. I had to snort. Sorry. I can't do anything about it. It's my fall, winter sinuses. They are no fun. We'll just put it there, but thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed it. It was supposed to be private, though, but since you broadcasted it, I had to explain what that remark was. I don't care.
You could always just leave them guessing. That's usually
well, I could, but then,
So she saw the shadow person. She asked it to move. It moved out of the way. She woke up in the morning, had that bookcase hovering above her, and then
Well, the board, 2x4.
okay. And then she got out from underneath it, and it vanished again. Was this? I wonder if there's any more. Is there more, or is that?
That's all she offered me.
Well,
so.
yeah, okay.
I mean, there may be more to it, but she was. It was just really cool that she
Yeah,
shared
that's
it.
awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. All of them are.
And I appreciate
Yeah.
that, Debbie. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. If you're listening out there somewhere, those are my favorite parts of the show. They really are. Just the fact that you saw things and you had such a different experience. Just to say, I mean, you had the presence of mind to go, could you please back up? I have to use the bathroom. And then it did. That we never hear. Now, we just heard of a weird story. Where the hell did I hear? I don't remember. I can't speak to it because I got to remember where the hell I heard it from. But I think it might have been one that I read. But a really cool experience. No, it was one that I read. This person was with their grandparents, staying with them over a summer, and they had all this noise upstairs in this one old part of the house that they never used anymore.
Yeah.
You remember that?
Yeah, that was the podcast.
That was the podcast. Okay. Yeah, and they went up there,
Yeah.
and he went up there on his own and snuck around and was trying to figure out where these noises of something moving around were, and he saw this shadowy thing. And shined a light on it, was able to see it pretty clearly. It was like this tentacle kind of thing, but it looked kind of like it had a head of a bird or something like that. And it just stood there looking at him, and he looked at it, and they just kind of were examining each other. And I thought, oh my God, what an amazing experience to have that face-to-face encounter. So the question that occurs to me is that if these things are dealing with an intelligence like that, could they be engaged? Could we get to the point where we could engage, have a I don't know if I want to say a relationship necessarily, but have an understanding, and so this person said after he saw this, it went away, went into a closet and disappeared, and that was it. That was the last he ever saw of it. However, he did say that after that, all the noises were much quieter, like much more respectful. And that to me was really cool, and it really correlated with what Debbie had sent in. So very cool. I love those stories, and I learn something every time, and that's a great example of it. You never hear these kind of stories. So now we got a bunch of other ones to read, and here's the first one is from a listener, Negan. So he's the one that was talking about the Job Corps on the last one that we read, and very interesting. So he says, I decided to go ahead and lay out all the other events that happened to others around me. First of all, the Job Corps in question was in Atterbury, which is right next to the Army base known as Camp Atterbury. And I have attached pictures pertaining to all the dorms in question, also a link to a site about hauntings at this location. The events I'm about to detail are according to my father and my late grandmother. Now, a little backstory. My grandmother was a CNA. And at different points, she took care of all of the elderly. And, well, this one time in particular, she was taking care of the elderly man whose wife had passed away at some point. Well, my father decided to stop by and lay down for a short period. And now, there happened to be a chandelier hanging, it says handling, but I think he means hanging right above the bed. And he was about to lay on, and as soon as he laid on the bed, the chandelier fell on a sensitive part of his body. Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, that sucked.
My father jumped up from the bed, stunned and shocked from the events that transpired, so much that he ran out of the house, never to go back. Now, my grandmother had 2 incidents that happened to her in the same house from the same story. Beforehand, she heard the sounds of sewing machine that was in one of the downstairs bedrooms. My grandmother told me the other story of when she and her second husband was sitting down watching television when a plate miraculously floated right in front of them and the television set. Wow, it definitely wanted to be noticed.
Yeah.
Now, I do have several strange experiences that I can't explain. For one, I had a dream about my uncle who had passed away. Now, I didn't know what he looked like because I had never seen him in years. But one day, I was talking to his daughter, my cousin, and when I brought up this man that I had a dream about, she identified him as her father. And I had seen a bald-headed man in a flannel shirt talking to me. I feel as if he was coming back to see me. And another incident was one morning around 7 to 8 a.m., I had to go to the bathroom. When I got up and walked past her room, when I heard a conversation between 2 males. It was something that I could hear, but seemed as if they were distant. When I started to walk past her room, the conversation abruptly stopped. Now, I was alone at the time and the only male in the house, and I would like to think that it was a conversation between my grandfather and my uncle. The final incident was a short one. Our parish priest was diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer about 5 years ago, and he kept going until the very end. Now, I was asleep one night when I woke up at 3 a.m., and the first thing I did was look in the far corner of my room in the pitch blackness. Didn't know what I was looking at, so I went back to sleep, and later that morning, I received the news that he had passed away. Ironically, I asked around trying to figure out what time he passed, and when I finally found out, I was in shock because they informed me that it was at 3 a.m. when he did pass. Even to this day, I am so shocked. Anyways, thanks for reading these incidences, Negan. Well, these are incredible incidences. I'm just really thrilled to be able to read them and to share them. Okay, so I'm just seeing. I'm gonna have to download these, aren't I? It's gonna screw up everything, isn't it? Okay. Well, I mean, the pictures are great. I don't know. I can try to open them up in a different viewer if I can, but I don't know. They're just overhead shots of these. I don't know. They look like almost like barracks.
Like barracks. That's
Yeah.
the Job Corps. Yeah.
Yeah. So they look like a bunch of barracks. So I think the pictures are cool, but they aren't really incredibly necessary. But the site that that Negan sent was https://atterbury-job-core-ghost-stories. So we can certainly look at that as well, because maybe we can share some of those stories and after we finish with the listener mail. I want to look and see how we're doing. We got about 8 minutes left. But Thank you so much, Negan. Those are awesome. Really, really extremely interesting. Just some incredible experiences for sure. Let's see. Let's go back here. All right. Now I got another one, and this is from a gentleman named Robert, who's a listener as well. And he says, "Hello, Brent. This is my experience I had with 4-foot-tall owls and ended with a shadow figure. And this all takes place over 1 year in 1988.
Wow.
The experience with the 4-foot-tall owls happened on a dairy farm where I lived with my parents and 2 younger brothers in the northeastern part of South Dakota. I remember waking up around 12:30 to 1 a.m. to get a drink of water from the kitchen. The window faces the farmyard and its single yard light and the milk barn. I looked out the kitchen window towards the yard as I drank some water and noticed 4 large owls standing in the light coming from the yard light. I thought it was really weird because you usually don't just see owls standing around. I was standing in the kitchen watching the owls as they milled around the yard when I heard my mother say from behind me, owls. I hadn't even heard her walk into the kitchen. The next thing I remember after seeing my mom in the kitchen are the owls in the yard. The owls in the yard was my alarm clock going off. So the alarm clock read 5 a.m., and as I looked over at it from my bed, I didn't remember getting back to bed after seeing the owls in the yard and my mom in the kitchen. Well, I quickly got dressed in my chore clothes and headed out to do the early morning chores before school. And as I walked across the yard to our dairy barn, I looked for the owl tracks in the snow where I remember them milling about. I didn't find a single track in the snow, but was surprised to figure out how tall they had been, because I remember them walking over by one of the outside fuel tanks and their heads were even with the top, and that would put them at 4 feet tall. Wow. Me and my brother quickly did our chores. With those done, we went back into the house to change clothes and eat breakfast. And as I ate my breakfast, I asked my mom what she thought about the owls we saw last night in the yard. My mom had a confused look on her face and said, "What owls?" "The 4 owls we saw in the yard that we saw last night," I said. She said, "You must have been dreaming, honey," was all my mother said to me as she drove me and my 2 younger brothers to the end of the driveway to meet the school bus. That was the first and last time I saw 4-foot-tall owls. But that summer, other weird things had happened. We moved from the dairy farm to another farm a mile away because My uncle and new wife had moved home to help on the farm. The new farm we had moved to was pretty much the same as our dairy farm. There was a house, machine shed for storage, and a barn. But this barn was run down to be used for milk. Was too run down to be used for milking cows. It was around the first part of June when I was tearing around and the land we owned with this new four-wheeler my dad bought for the farm. I got the bright idea to take it through one of the larger sloughs we had on our property to see what the four-wheeler could go through. And as I rode the four-wheeler through the tall cattails of the slough, the cattails blocked my view to just beyond the front of the four-wheeler. And then suddenly I can into, maybe it's I ran into large flattened down, or I think it's ran. He wrote can, but I ran into a large flattened down area of cattails.
Yeah.
The flattened area of cattails was roughly 40 feet in diameter and in a perfect circle. I don't know what was there or what it was, but the open area gave me the creeps. I drove the four-wheeler around in the area of flattened down cattails looking for any signs of what animals could have done this. My first thought was that the white-tailed deer were using it as a bedding area. But this was June, and deer didn't bunch up into herds till late winter. Also, the cattails were green and healthy looking, but just flattened down. The next strange thing to happen that summer was on July 7th, 1988. It was Thursday, and this incident was just plain weird and unbelievable. I was shooting gophers in one of our cow pastures because the population of gophers had just exploded and one cow had broken a leg and had to be put down. So Dad told me to take the .22 rifle and thin out the gophers. And I was laying down at the top of a small hill near the end of the shelter belt that ran alongside of a fence line. The shelter belt gave me some shade and a good view of the area as I looked for gophers. I could see the opposite side of the pasture where it butted up to the county gravel road and the fields of alfalfa on the other side of the gravel road. As I looked around for the quick movements of gophers as their heads popped up, I noticed a tall figure walking across the alfalfa field. This tall figure, as I guess, a quarter mile away, and was wearing all black. I didn't really think this was odd at first because it was back before everyone had cell phones. If you broke down in the field, you'd have to walk home to get help. So I thought this must be one of the neighbors just walking across country to get back to their farm. And as I watched this figure or person walk across the alfalfa field, they came to the barbed wire fence that surrounded the field and walked through it without stopping. I watched as this figure walked through the barbed wire fence, up the ditch, and disappear mid-stride in the middle of the gravel road. It was like the figure or person just walked into thin air. The last strange thing to happen was on July 9th, 1988. I was asleep in my bedroom on the second story and was woke up by something scratching on my window. Sitting up in bed, I saw a cloaked figure perched on my windowsill looking in at me. I thought it was one of my younger brothers messing with me because I had told them what I saw a couple days earlier, and I made quick movement towards the window, and what I thought was one of my younger brothers, and I watched as the figure stood up on the window, spread its arms, and fall backwards into the shadows. I screamed as I heard a loud bang hit the side of the house, and thought, crap, one of my brothers had fallen and gotten hurt. I yelled for my mom and dad to get up, for someone was hurt. Grabbed a flashlight on my way out the backyard, and I started looking for whichever one of my brothers I'd watched fall. I was only outside in the backyard looking for about 10 seconds before my dad, mom, and two younger brothers came out of the house asking what was going on. I told them what I had saw and thought it was one of the younger brothers messing with me. Both of them said no and had no idea what I was talking about. This is my experience with 4-foot-tall owls and a shadow person.
It's crazy.
Best regards, Rob. Well, Rob, thank you so much. Now, I would say that's okay. Two of those things really make me think of possible visitations. The 4-foot-tall owls.
You mean alien visitation?
Yes, of course.
And the possible cattail circles?
Yes.
Those are amazing.
Right, because many times people, when they're dealing with aliens, for some reason have the memory of seeing owls. And that comes up all the time.
Yeah.
And when you found the circle of cattails, that could be where a craft came down. I don't know. It's bizarre. I don't know why owls. I don't know if there's a race of extraterrestrials that look like owls, or if it's just the way our mind translates it, or if they're able to screw with our mind enough to give us a mundane picture of what they look like instead of being aliens.
Right.
I don't know how much control they have, but that owls thing comes up all the time. When you look at The Fourth Kind, for instance,
Right.
that movie, everybody's seeing owls. Owls.
Right.
So I don't know. Very bizarre, though. And I'm sure that your mom was never there. It was just something they used to trigger you or to get you to
Right.
go unconscious or whatever. But maybe one came in the house and was behind you. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know why. Oh, well, it doesn't matter.
I don't know why, but we hit the break. But thank you, Robert, for that story, and we'll be back for more of these listener stories here on the Paranormal Portal.
More of these.
Don't go away.
It even laughed at it.
Now tuned into the truth frequency.
Your protection from deception. TNR.
Truth Frequency Radio.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. That was section number one, segment number one of our Saturday extravaganza. 2 hours of absolute mayhem regarding the paranormal and probably so much more. But hope you guys are doing good. Hope you're enjoying the show. Those listener emails are absolutely incredible. Oh, sorry, I didn't unmute you.
That's okay.
There you are.
Yes, they are incredible.
They are incredible. So Rob, I think the first two definitely, those two definitely seem to be involving extraterrestrial or some kind of visitation. It's crazy. I know it's bizarre. I've not heard of 4 foot tall owls before.
Crazy, not 4 foot.
But it does sound familiar for some reason. Like I might have heard of it somewhere, sometime in the bunch of research I've done through the years. But I know that owls as a theme comes up all the time with or quite frequently with extraterrestrial visitation. So that's very possible, and especially the circular area of cattails would seem to be almost like a crop circle kind of expression. So I don't know what it means. I don't know what to tell you about it, but the shadow people thing was very wild. Now here's the thing: you saw it, and I think what was going on there is you saw it. It didn't know you were there, and it was, of course, just doing its thing. I think it probably became aware of you, and that's why it disappeared into thin air. And I think that it just decided to check and see who you are. You were able to observe it, and whether that requires a level of sensitivity on your part, so that you may have some latent psychic ability, or maybe it's not latent. I don't know. I don't know you as a person, but perhaps it decided to see who you were, and that's why it was just standing there looking into your window. It was probably the very same being, I would suspect. For some reason, you noticed it, and I think that to them is maybe a surprise. So very cool experiences. I'm glad you're okay. I'm glad that nothing dark really came of any of it. It was just some incredible experiences. But I'm thrilled you chose to share them here on the show. Thank you so much for that. Let's see. I've got so much more to go through here. So those two, I will unstar them so I know that I've read them. And then we got another email from Linda, and this does include a picture that I think is pretty cool. It's more of an explanation picture, but Linda, who's a listener, I think Minnesota, Linda in Minnesota, she sent this in on the 14th. It says, "Hello, Brent. Thank you for reading my experiences." Excuse me, Coca-Cola. She says, "Thank you for reading my experiences. I wish that I could transfer memories to video. Until then, I try to describe what I've encountered the very best that I can. I've worked in this mill for years, and I've watched it age from a brand new machine to an older model. My job consists of setting up the machine up to sometimes make one prototype part all the way through to production runs of up to 1,000 pieces or more, and I've always loved making things. And I'm sure that I've infused my energy into this mill after all of this time. And one day I was standing right in front of it, loading the tooling for the next job, and a red orb about the size of a tennis ball came out of the left guard wall and floated in a steady straight line towards the right. And I thought something was wrong with my eyes, and I blinked real hard a couple of times. It was almost shoulder height to me. And when it went through the right guard wall, I raced around the outside to see if it was still there. Nope. Now it was gone. Feeling foolish, I glanced around to see if any of the other guys noticed what was happening, and there was nobody else around. I was really puzzled and a little shocked. I didn't know what to think, but a couple of weeks ago, while I was talking to Deb, she said, "You've been seeing orbs." And I had been. I told her about this red one, and it had been so close to me, less than a couple of feet away, and then she said that my ex, who is in a spirit now, said, "Surprise, it was him again." I do believe that he's very talented spirits, and I've drawn the orb's height and path on this snapshot of the mill and would have loved to have caught this on video, but it's the only recorded in my memories. Excuse me. So I will put this up on the screen so you guys can see it. And here it is, of course. This is the left wall and the right wall where it kind of just shot through, and right in between here. Very wild. I don't know if it's, I mean, there is a red here, But I assume that whatever's going on, I assume that you've been seeing this red light for years and years then. So that's not just some kind of trick of light. Whatever it is, I don't know, but very, very cool, very bizarre. This is the mill machine she's using. And what a piece of equipment. Wow. That is serious. So very cool. Thank you so much for sharing that. I do appreciate it. And look forward to hearing more. As they happen, we love getting more. Now I got about 1, 2, 3, 4.
Wow.
All right.
Really?
I got 4 more, yeah.
Wow.
So this one is coming from excuse me, Surf Elvis. Okay. It says, I know the following is long. I've listed a lot of the most memorable paranormal experiences that I've had during my 59 years of life, including those before and after the OBE, out-of-body experience, because I didn't want to forget to mention them. They're all somewhat related to the upper dimensions that I glimpsed and am convinced exist. All of my experiences just came flying into this email. Most of them I haven't spoken of in years, and I'm absolutely honored that you chose to do it here. Thank you so much. That means the world. Excuse me. I should have muted that. Came too quick. I couldn't do anything about it. So, in addition to the OBE, which I described in detail below, I also had an experience in graduate school where my dog saw my friend's ghost. My aunt also visited me right after she died. I felt my dog's spirit leave his body, and I saw my other dog's ghost, and I had 2 premonitions during my trip to Africa in December of 1986, where I crossed the Sahara Desert in a truck full of camels, was kidnapped by an Algerian police officer, and due to the second premonition or vision, I escaped from his clutches to be saved by a UN doctor who had just decided to change his plans and drive out on a remote clinic 3 days early, literally just in time to save me and drive me to freedom. I also saw a UFO one night. It was as big as a house and shaped like a house. Oh, that's wild. I've had psychic experiences all of my life, but after the out-of-body experience, my psychic abilities increased dramatically. Maybe I was just more open to them. I don't know. I described some of them like a bad feeling that was actually a premonition about an upcoming sailing trip to the Gulf of Mexico in July 1980. My morning daydream premonitions catching my boyfriend cheating, although 500 miles away, etc. That's wonderful. I mean, it's great that you're having these abilities. What an amazing life, though. My God. You've seen some amazing things. I also describe an incident where I fell down some stairs in college but was saved by an invisible person, ghost, or one of my guardian angels, I don't know, who reached underneath me just before I hit the bottom of the concrete stairs and caught me and gently laid me down on the landing. What happened to me throughout my life can be classified as paranormal, but I like to think of the experience as just glimpses into the mystery of life that few people get to glimpse. Although it seems that more and more people are, I agree with you, and which has yet to be researched and solved by science. Hopefully one day it will. However, thanks to people like you and the brave people you have on your shows, Sasquatch, Dogmen, Little Green Men, ghosts, etc., are finally being accepted as real. Now on to my story or stories. I was raised in an atheistic household. My mother was not just an atheist, she was an anti-religious and hated God as well as religion. She did not believe in God because a God would not let what happened to her happen. Therefore, there could be no God. My father was more relaxed and open-minded about it and would be considered an agnostic. The closest he got to revealing his beliefs in God was after struggling to save a sick dog one night. The dog died. He's a veterinarian, and it really affected him, and when he came home that night, I saw him sitting on the porch, staring at the sky before he came in. I met him outside, and he told me how small he felt when he looked at the stars. There has to be someone or something that could create all of this. And this was just one glimpse he gave about his belief in God. Despite my atheist upbringing, I was nevertheless open-minded as to whether or not there was a God or a force, but I really didn't think about it. It wasn't an issue in my life. In March 1980, I was studying at Utah, Austin, in Texas. I was an English lit major and procrastinator, so I was usually already late on my many papers, and combined with being smart but with poor study habits, I was usually in a constant state of anxiety around midterm every semester, which would have been the case around March in 1980 when my OBE happened. It was Wednesday night, yet two good friends and I decided to go punk rock dancing at a local bar on the drag. We danced and danced, jumping up and down for hours, and we didn't drink any alcohol, and I didn't do any drugs at the time. But after we left, I remember that I was physically exhausted, but I was very, very relaxed. I remember going up the elevator in my dorm building and feeling completely relaxed. And I had never felt that relaxed before. I was tingling all over. And I was in a state of complete and utter peace and relaxation. I was at peace physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually, every way possible. I then caught a glimpse of the universe, and I realized that the dimension we live in now, which I'll call the third dimension, and which we believe to be reality, is not the true reality. We're actually part of a much bigger dimension, which I will call the fourth dimension for now. In it, we are actually higher beings which have created our current third dimension selves. What happens to us in the third dimension isn't really important in the true scheme of things. The very bad and the very good are immaterial and just part of a game we play. We create our lives in this third dimension as a type of game or play or TV show for whatever reason, whether it is just for fun or to learn valuable soul lessons. I think it's done just because as souls we like to create things, just like God created us, the higher fourth dimension beings. It's just like we in the third dimension like to create plays, write novels, write movies, TV screenplays, play house when we're kids, play Barbies when we're young, and so on. I realized as I walked from the elevator to my dorm room that I'm actually part of a higher being that resides in this fourth dimension, and that I created me in my third dimensional life. And I don't know if we create everything that will ever happen to us or if we just step into the role and improv it. When I got upstairs, I got in bed and laid down to go to sleep, and I was still tingling all over. I lay there feeling the tingling and feeling how wonderful it felt when I suddenly heard 3 loud knocks on the wall above my head. I remember opening my eyes and looking at the wall and seeing nothing. I closed my eyes again, and suddenly my arms went up on their own. I was not raising them, and I then started to sit up in bed. I laughed to myself, oh, I must be in a trance. Then I opened my eyes, and I was not asleep. I hadn't gone to sleep yet. The lights were as they always were at that time of night, with the lights from the outside making diamonds on the ceiling, and I looked at my body, and I could just see the upper part of my body and arms, which were stretched out in front of me, as being the shape of my body, but composed of large round brown and white molecules, which were vibrating back and forth rapidly. I could also see the silver cord that tied my soul to my inner body, to my physical body, and that came from below my sternum and out of my back. I then got a very dark feeling, not evil, but just dark, and I said to myself, well, if he's a vampire, then is he pulling me out of my body to get me? I then turned my head to the left and saw a man standing in my room staring at me with a look on his face like, well, are you coming or what? I was just stunned to see him. I'd never seen him before. He was around 20-something, had light brown or dark blonde hair, brownish hazel eyes, as far as I could tell, acne scars on his cheeks, a cream-colored shirt, and a light caramel-colored tan leather jacket and brown pants. Suddenly, I was back down on my body and was staring at the same space next to the door where the guy was, but now he was gone. I jumped up and checked the door. It was still locked. I looked in my closet and under my bed and in the bathroom. No one was there. I went to the living area and it was empty, and the front door was still locked. I wasn't scared, just stunned. I then went to sleep. The next morning, I told my friend who lived down the hall what had happened. When my roommate, who had been out of town with her boyfriend, returned, I told her and her boyfriend about it, and they said I needed to talk to a priest. They rarely talked to me again after that. No one believed me but me. A few months later, I was lying in my friend's roommate's bed, and the friend who lived down the hall from me, who I had previously told about the experience, and I was reading her roommate's new Cosmopolitan magazine, which had just arrived, and in it, there was an article about Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, the pioneering physician who wrote the book on death and dying and the 6 stages of coming to term with the diagnosis of having a terminal illness and or the 6 stages of grief. Anyway, in this article, Dr. Ross explained how her life changed when one of her past patients, who died from terminal cancer, promised that after she died, she would come back and let her know if there really wasn't life after death. One night, this patient appeared in Dr. Ross's room and told her that there really is life after death. She supposedly wrote a message for her to show as proof. Dr. Ross then relieved the deaths and the soul release of over 1,000 of her former patients that same night. From that night on, relieved the deaths? I don't know what that means.
Relived.
Well, it says relieved.
I know.
Okay.
I understand.
She then relieved the deaths of soul release of over 1,000 of her former patients that same night. From that night on, 2 spiritual guides have been with her ever since. Dr. Ross was ostracized and ridiculed after this interview, and her claims were publicized. Well, that's terrible. That's just terrible. However, what was most important to me at the time was how she described her soul outside of her body. Dr. Ross described her soul as being in the shape of her body, but composed of round, brown, and white molecules vibrating rapidly back and forth. I jumped up and showed this article to my friend, and the article was months away from being published when I had my OBE and first told my friend about my experience. That was proof enough for me to verify what had happened to me was real and not just a hallucination or a dream. What I was most curious about, in addition to why this happened to me at age 19 and never before that, was why there were 3 knocks or raps above my head before this happened. I've read of many, many paranormal encounters like with ghosts that are preceded by 3 knocks. 3, not 2, not 4, but 3, always 3. I've also read of the silver cords that people have seen tying other people to each other, and which are seen by people who had near-death experiences. I've heard of all of that too, yeah. I've had experiences since that time where I start to leave my body, but I get scared and drop back in. Because of the OBE, I decided to try to safely recreate the experience, which I knew started with me being completely and literally relaxed. So I went to a New Age hypnotist, and I had tried hypnotism before when I lived in Hong Kong, and tried acupuncture for my psoriasis, but I was afraid of needles, so my acupuncturist sent me to a hypnotist acupuncturist, and I realized then how relaxing hypnosis was. That all it does is super relax you and open you to suggestion better. I saw this lady, Joy, many, many times, and I was able to go into very deep trances. She would let me fly. That's cool. One day when we had to hold the sessions in her friend's house because Joy's house was being remodeled, in one session, Joy let me go for several minutes towards the end of the session without saying anything, just so I could deeply relax. And suddenly I opened my eyes and looked to my right as I sat on a soft, comfy couch. Sitting next to me was this beautiful lady with very pale skin and dark hair, and she was smiling and staring at my friend Joy. I was just awed by her pale skin and the shape of her nose when Joy yelled my name, Tracy. I turned my head to face Joy, and when I looked back, the lady was gone. And I asked Joy who that lady was that was just sitting next to me, and she asked, what lady? According to Joy, I was in a trance when it appeared that I had stopped breathing, so she yelled my name. I told her about the lady and questioned her as to whether or not someone had ever died in her friend's house. Was this lady a ghost? No, no one had died here. She asked me why, and I didn't ask the lady who she was. And I said, I don't think to ask because I was just stunned to see her there and was awed by her porcelain skin and the shape of her beautiful nose. It's like you enter a stage of naivety when you are in the midst of an OBE or NDE. NDE is near-death experience, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. I've come to believe that what this lady is either one of my 2 guardian angels I've glimpsed before, or is one of my long-lost ancestors who now acts as my guardian angel. Yeah, that's possible. So what is my OBE experience? Or that is my OBE experience, rather. I've researched OBEs and NDEs ever since in hopes of finding someone who's had a similar experience and in hopes of understanding what had happened to me. I think that one day quantum physicists will have the courage to deal with and analyze these types of experiences, which I believe are extra-dimensional or interdimensional. There has to be a scientific rationale for what happened to me because it did happen. I also wish the quantum physicists would analyze ghosts, hauntings, strange lights, paranormal Sasquatch encounters, little green men, etc. There has to be a scientific rationale for these encounters as well. Far too many credible people have had credible encounters for this to be summarily dismissed as hallucinations by madmen or attempts to garner attention. I feel lucky that my OBE happened. It gave me a lot of strength to face life and death. Yeah, that's powerful. I wish that I wouldn't be so afraid when it starts to happen, and I wish I knew why I got a dark but not evil feeling about the man in the room. Why was he there? Will I ever meet him again in this third dimension? Would I even recognize him if I did? Was he a ghost who had died in my dorm room years ago? He was dressed in early 1970s or 80s style dress. Did I feel he was dark because he was so unexpected, or because he was a negative spirit? I've had many other psychic experiences and paranormal experiences, and I've always been psychic, as has my mother of all people, and once I had an actual psychic vision in high school. I can tell you about it if you like. I also worked as a psychic at our local Renaissance Festival for a few years, but I quit because I, at the time, was an ALJ, administrative law judge, and I was afraid I would run into one of my readings during a hearing. Yeah, that's probably too. That would be a little rough. I have the majority of my spontaneous psychic visions or experiences early in the morning. I guess before the static and noises of the day fill your head and block your link to the ether. Yeah, I think you're right. Ask me about those quick experiences, such as the fire engine ride to work below, the stray cat, etc. I'll have a spontaneous daydream, such as while walking to work, and then the daydream comes true. For example, I had to walk about 1 mile to the last bus stop to my work in the city of Austin Fire Department headquarters, where I worked as an accountant for 10 plus years before I transferred to the Parks and Recreation Department, also the city of Austin. On my way to work, I had a quick daydream where I saw a fire engine drive by and waved for it to stop, which it did, and I asked for a ride to work. A few seconds after the daydream ended, I heard a loud rumbling engine behind me. I said to myself, no way, it couldn't be. And I turned around to see a large fire engine coming down the street, and I assumed it was on its way to AFD HQs to pick up forms and supplies. I stopped it and asked if I could get a ride to HQ, and unfortunately, I didn't daydream me riding on the engine to work, and the firefighter said that they were actually going to the airport. So I didn't get a ride to work after all. Still, that's
a good try.
Yeah, that's still awesome. I've known when I was going to win raffles, such as a week-long ski trip to Vail.
Wow.
Just before they called the winning ticket number, I got the tingling feeling all over me, and I knew I'd won it. I told the lady next to me, who I didn't know, I know I'm going to win it. She probably thought, oh, this is rigged. That lady told me she was winning. My father has the same kind of thing happen. This has happened to me on other occasions too. Another incident occurred in that same dorm building when I was bringing an electric popcorn popper from my room to my friends, and I was walking down the concrete interior stairway inside the building when my heel got caught on the top stair and I fell forward. I was still holding onto the popcorn maker when I go to the bottom of the stairs and was about to hit the concrete when I felt a pair of invisible hands reach underneath me and stop my fall with a cushion of air and lay me down gently on the concrete landing. I wasn't hurt in the least except for a small bruise on my ankle. The leg of the popcorn maker broke off upon impact, and I got up and said thank you to my invisible benefactor and proceeded to go to my friend's room. And I don't know if it was my guardian angel, a ghost, or God. I can't remember if it was before or after my OBE. I just got to look. There's still a lot more of this left. So I'm going to have to do this on the other side. Yeah. But it's credible. Wow. We're going to read the next part of this email after the break. But my God, it's a great, great email. This is incredible. This is a show all by itself with everything she's talking about. This is 15, 20 shows of material just condensed into this one email. And I realize it's a long email, but these are...
Maybe we should have her call in and do a podcast.
Right. We should do that. Yeah, that would be great. I think
awesome.
I think that'd be wonderful. I hope we can get her to call in to do an interview for the podcast, because this is just an incredible journey, just amazing. And it would be great to hear her describe these things in her own words. And this is probably, I don't know how much she would be willing to do, but
yeah.
This is actually several episodes. Are you still busy, tied up?
Yeah.
A little bit. Are you?
Is that like the question? Why does my boyfriend keep saying "untie me"? or in my case, my girlfriend, whatever.
Right.
You know,
Well,
but,
hey.
yeah, that meme was funny.
That was funny. That was funny. There's a meme that we're discussing where a guy's all tied up. It says, "Oh, my new boyfriend, he's so cute. He keeps asking me, hey, please untie." The guy's all tied up in ropes and stuff. "Please untie me. Please let me go. Who are you?" I'm butchering the hell out of it, but it's funny. Anyway, there's the bell, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to go to our break. We're going to finish this email on the other side. So hang on, and we'll be right back with more of the Paranormal Portal. Don't go away.
Everybody likes to play their games. Everybody loves to place their bets. They don't understand the price I paid. They don't care to comprehend. Trace their lines upon my body, dripping scars across my heart. Raging anger pours inside me as their lies keep falling apart. But I'm not broken yet. I'm not broken yet. I'm not broken yet. I am finished with my silence. I am not a stupid boy. No more breaking me with kindness. Just you dance upon my joy. Feeding me with empty promise. You're just another fucking mess. Take another slice of my sanity. Just make sure that you're well fed. I'm not broken yet. I'm not broken yet. I'm not broken yet. I'm not broken
Caroline is not like those
she's with. They're attracted to the one thing about her that's different from themselves. Her life force is very strong. It gives off its own illumination. It is a light that implies life and memory of love and home and earthly pleasures. Something they desperately desire, but can't have anymore. Right now, she's the closest thing to that.
Poltergeists are usually associated with an individual. Hauntings seem to be connected with an area. A house, usually.
Poltergeist disturbances are of fairly short duration, perhaps a couple of months. Hauntings can go on for years.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the show. I am still your host, Brent Thomas.
And I'm still not.
I refuse to change. I will not change. Welcome back to hour number 2 of the Paranormal Portal tonight. And it's been a fun fest of amazing listener emails. I do have a call, so I'm going to just put the rest of that email on hold just for a minute while we get to the call because, got to see who's on the horn here. All right, this is area code 619. You're on the air.
Hi, Brent. Hi, Don.
Hello.
It's Regular Girl.
Hi, Regular. How you doing?
How you doing?
I'm doing all right.
Welcome to the show. What's going on tonight?
Thank you. Well, I'm glad you mentioned Kubler-Ross, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, and the work she did on death and dying.
Uh-huh.
And so I had something I wanted to say about that. I had a comment. I'm a little pissed off.
Okay. Let her rip. You're among friends.
All right.
Let her rip.
Yeah, I forgot. I forgot that story about her and her patients and why they sort of discredited her work at the end. But I do remember because at that time in the early 80s, the late 70s, the early 80s, I had begun to study psychology, although I was resisting it. I didn't want to, but my life had thrown me in the direction of that career path. Anyway, so I was familiar with her work. She was a pioneer. Yeah. You know, back then, there wasn't many people who were studying. Nowadays, that's a big topic because we have this huge population, who are these senior citizens. So, you look at any college curriculum, health curriculum, and there's a lot on death and dying. But Kubler-Ross, she was a pioneer. But, they made her look a little bit goofy. And that's what I'm pissed off about, and that's what I want to say a little bit about.
Sure.
And I had forgotten that story, and that's why her career went south. But she was a scholar, and Anyway, what I learned also this week, there was another Harvard scholar. And this is what they do. She was a scholar. Mm-hmm. And her work was credible. So what happens? She has this experience that's paranormal. What do? Instead of using her credibility and saying, okay, here's somebody who's in our club, so to speak, our club of reputability. How do you say that? Reputability. She's reputable.
With esteemed
she's
reputation.
In our club, right? She's passed all our stuff, and she's experienced something paranormal. Therefore,
that should lend credibility.
Right?
Yeah.
Credibility. No, what do? They go behind the scenes. Mm-hmm. They make her sound crazy. Now, it doesn't end there, though. What they do is they call it something else. They call it with psychic phenomena. They call it remote viewing. They continue to study the paranormal phenomena. They call it something else. They continue to call her or other people who don't know about the other club crazy or fringe people. They call Kubler-Ross crazy. Fringe, they call her Fringe.
Mm-hmm.
They let her keep her book. They say, oh, she's one a little bit goofy. They kick her out of the club for some reason. Anyway, what I wanted to say is I learned this week about another Harvard scholar, lifelong scholar, Harvard. He has, at some point in his career, an experience with UFOs, and I learned about another term, which I'm forgetting, which I shouldn't have mentioned because I forget it, but it has to do with contact.
Uh-huh.
They did the same thing to him. They did the same thing to him, only even more powerfully contrived. And I'm sorry I'm forgetting this woman's name. You can look it up on the internet. She's one of the more powerful Democrats. She writes this book. They get her to write a book on false memory. So she's also connected to the syndrome of false memory. So they're using her to kind of do that thing with, she's going to be used for the false memory as they pull in things with sexual improprieties and pedophilia.
Sure. Yeah.
I say, because that's what they're going to do with saying that people who claim that they were molested as children, could all be false memory. Same thing as people who, claimed they had UFO contact. And that's what she claimed about this Harvard professor. So, his entire career now is, he's a goofball, So that's what they do. Yet, they still are going to continue to study that phenomena, only they call it something else now. They name it something else. My point is that it's all about who has the power to write the story, because they do continue to study what is paranormal phenomena.
Sure.
Meaning like Kubler-Ross's experiences. They do study that, whoever they is, under the name of DARPA or whatever these agency names are,
Sure.
remote viewing.
Right.
They call it something else, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then they have the fringe people. We have our names: psychic phenomena, channeling, telephone calls from the dead. Those are the fringe goofballs. And then those people over there, who got the TED Talks, but it's whoever in control
Sure.
of writing the story.
Well, it's kind of the same as history,
And
the
Kubler-Ross got kicked out of the club. That's what I want everyone to hear.
Sure.
For some reason, she got kicked out of the club, and the man from Harvard got kicked out of the club.
Wow.
So my inclination is to, sort of keep my eye on the ball to see. I don't like these people who are kicking the people out of the club.
Right.
My tendency is to just not trust that.
No, I agree.
So that's what I'm pissed off about, and I wanted to just, I had forgotten that about Kubler-Ross.
Yeah.
Because she did some interesting work. She delved into that area of death and dying at a time, when nobody else did. People are afraid of that. People are still afraid of.
You're absolutely right.
So therefore, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're absolutely
pretty
right.
long-winded there, wasn't I?
It's all right. You've been saving it up for a while. We don't hear from you as much, so you got to use your time explicitly. But I think you're absolutely right. It's kind of the same thing as history. There's people that write the history. It doesn't mean it's the actual history. It's just the history they want known. And so that's the same in so many facets of our lives, that there are people that control narratives. And that, of course, creates false truths and false realities and false understanding. And so I guess it's to obfuscate truth, in a manner of speaking.
Right.
Well, I'm starting to see, I think that, I'm not saying that there's anything wrong or right about that. It's all story. Story is very powerful. It all is story. I don't think there's anything wrong with that per se, but it's to be aware of that. It's all story. But it's about to watch that carefully.
Yeah.
That's really, really, really what's going on. That's all it is.
Yep.
So it's about power. It's about power, though.
It is.
And
Yep. There's a lot of people.
and how how and why, perhaps, we give it away. Yeah, how and why we give it away.
Yeah.
Because if it is all story, because I love a good story. A good story takes a listener, right? You can't have a story without a listener either.
But you think about it now. Regula, and like for instance, the news networks. There's so many people peddling a false narrative of news. Whatever side of the spectrum you're on, and that doesn't matter. But I mean, there's not a lot of credible news out there. It's either slanted one way or the other, and it takes a new brand of news to be formed, of where people are finding their own news now. They're not waiting for somebody to give it to them, and the same is true for, I think, these subjects, like the paranormal subjects. It's like we're not going to doctors asking their opinion. We're not going to scientists because they have a very direct narrative that doesn't include us. So we've got to find our own truth, and that's what I think the internet is really making possible, is that it's creating the ability for us to find the narratives we're interested in and exploring the information in its pure form, while also having to disseminate a bunch of garbage. But it's there. It's all out there if you look.
It is. Although I'm becoming surprised at how many people don't know what I'm talking about when I talk about internet radio.
Yeah.
And in terms of that, it does take, like, listening. It does take a listener for a story.
Sure.
We say we're aware that listening is an active thing, but perhaps we're not as aware of how very active it is. We're not aware. We have been so programmed to just sit and take it in. That's the programming that's the most destructive. Is that we've been taught to just sit and listen. We've been taught that we don't have power, but we do. You see, to sit and listen is active.
Sure. Yep. No, you're right.
You see, it's like, it's so simple you can miss it. But if
that's what we're here for, is to keep people
one of those
remembering.
Things,
keep people remembering.
And so more and more this week, especially when I've explained to people that there is this thing called live internet radio, they're fascinated, and I've become fascinated that they're not aware that it exists.
Sure.
Because they want to talk, they want to be able to engage.
Yep.
And the fact that it's right there on their phone, everyone's walking around with these phones, with these devices now, but they're not aware that this is here, what we're doing right now. Oh. They still think that they have to just sit and take it in.
Sure.
So I'm thinking, as we're talking, that may be the next step. If there is one, if we do want to create, I do. I feel like I love it. I love conversation. Sure. I love affecting change. Right. I love being an iconoclast. There's just something that was in me, I think. Really, I do. Maybe from the time I was a very small child.
Sure.
But I think there's others here like that too. So, to let other people know that this is here.
Yeah.
Right there on the phone.
We are little
by radio.
Piece by piece, we're letting the world know.
Yep.
But thank you so much for your call in tonight. It's great to hear from you again.
Thank you.
It's wonderful. Please don't be a stranger, because we've missed you.
I'm not. I'm here.
All right.
All right. We'll talk to you soon. Take care.
You too. Bye.
Okay, wonderful.
And that was our regular girl.
Yeah, she's not as regular as she used to be, but she's still out there listening. That's wonderful. That warms my heart. She's a great person. She's been a friend of the show for a long time.
Yep.
Way back when.
Naysay in the chat said it fills his heart with joy to hear her again.
Yeah, I saw that. I did see that. Yep.
Yep.
All right, so
That's
we're continuing on this email. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, go ahead. No, I'm dead.
Continuing on this email because this has just been an amazing journey through her experiences. And not only that, it's amazingly well written. But I'm going to continue again. It continues on. It says, as I said earlier, I was always psychic before the out-of-body experience, but it intensified afterwards. For example, a friend invited me to go sailing with him on a small 14-foot boat. Actually, it says 14-inch, but I'm sure she meant foot. In the Gulf of Mexico near Surfside, Texas in July 1980, about 3 to 4 months after my out-of-body experience in March 1980. His friend had a condo on the beach there and wanted us to come down and stay there during the 4th of July holiday so as to prevent others from breaking in and trashing it, which had apparently happened in the years before. My friend Craig said we'd leave early Sunday morning. After I hung up, I got a strong, bad feeling about the trip. And I had them before, but they always went away over time. But in this instance, it didn't go away, and it got worse and worse as this weekend progressed, or as the week progressed. Finally, I told another friend about it in case something happened to me when I was gone. He advised me not to go, but stupid me, I was now curious as to what was going to happen and whether my bad feeling would portend a bad experience. What can I say? I was 19 and not afraid of mortality at that point after my OBE. We went sailing that day once we got to Surfside, and then our rudder broke, and we were in the midst of putting a new one on when a man who we never met before and who was vacationing there with his 2 kids saw what we were doing and tried to convince us not to go back out sailing. But he had a very, very bad feeling about it, and he invited us to lunch, during which time he continually tried to talk us out of going back sailing. We ignored him and went out one last time at about 3 p.m. in the afternoon, and we followed the dolphins, following the shrimp boats coming back from fishing as they threw their unwanted catch back into the sea. And we were so close to an oil rig at the time, almost 10 miles out to sea, that we decided to sail around it and then head back in. It was Craig and his small dog Ranger, and Craig was disabled due to a horrible motorcycle accident. God, my adrenaline is flowing as I'm writing this. I hadn't thought of this event in ages. Anyway, as we headed back to shore, all of a sudden our boat turned directly into the wind. It was an experienced sailor and had been sailing since I was 5 years old. I even had my own sailboat, a laser, for a few years, and I was sailing the boat, and I knew how to sail and how not to go into the wind. Well, I turned around to look back at the back of the boat, and to my horror, I saw that I was about 2 feet underwater. Uh-oh. To make the long story shorter, our boat had a crack or hole in it, and it was sinking, and it sank lower and lower as we tried to swim it to shore. The dog, who had by then gotten tired of being washed off the boat, started to swim itself to shore, and I started crying. I knew that we would never see Ranger again. He turned one last time to look at us as if to say, well, are you coming or not? Where have I heard this saying before? I just realized that. Wow. The bottom is only 60 feet below us, and it was late afternoon, shark feeding time, and there was a shark catching festival up the coast at the far western tip of Galveston Island in the Aransas Pass at the same time. To this day, I cannot believe that we were not attacked by sharks during our saga. And that is the real paranormal thing about this experience. Our guardian angel had to have protected us. We finally made it to shore at about 3 a.m. I was in shock and just couldn't speak. All I could get out to the people we met at a bonfire on the beach was the dog, and I started crying again. We were sick at our stomach from all of the seawater we had swallowed. The first group of people wouldn't help us. They probably thought we were crazy and drunk. The second group from New York swung into action and began to help us. They gave us bubble gum to stop the nausea from the seawater, and it works. The first guy then drove over and apologized. He didn't believe us at first. Anyway, we were driven back to the condo, and we went looking for Ranger, and I held the spotlight, which I could barely do, and I just knew that I was going to find a dead dog washed on shore. We did not find Ranger, but Craig went back out a couple of hours later and found him about 3 miles before where we landed, and he was staring out to sea waiting for us to come home. Apparently, this is reason for my bad feeling and the bad feeling of the guy with his kids. Another time in 1984, I woke up at 3 a.m. in the morning, sitting up from a dead sleep in my grandmother's house in Mississippi, and said, "He's sleeping with another woman in my bed." I knew that my boyfriend, who had never cheated on me as far as I knew until then, was sleeping with someone else in my bed in Dallas, where we lived, while I was gone. It took him 4 months, but he finally admitted it to me that it was true and asked how I knew. He was convinced that I had installed a hidden camera somewhere in the room, but I hadn't. We are still good friends to this day. Well, that's a forgiving soul. One final thing, ever since my OBE, light bulbs and incandescent kind, as well as fluorescent to a lesser extent, burn out at double or triple the rate it usually takes. I don't know how LED bulbs will react since I don't have any yet. They react real well, by the way. Thanks for listening and reading this long recounting. I want to tell my story now because I feel safe doing so.
Okay, thank you.
I no longer practice law or am employed as a judge, so I'm not afraid that I will run into one of my parties. And I don't care what people think of me, except that I hope people believe me. I also hope that you will be interested enough to want to talk to me. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Without a doubt.
Let me just say absolutely.
Anytime you want to call in.
Yeah. Not only do I hope that telling my story will give someone out there who had the same experience some confidence that what happened to them was real and was not a dream or hallucination, I also hope to hear back from listeners who may have had similar experiences, especially those who have had OBEs, and seeing if their descriptions of what their soul looked like was similar to what I saw. Brown and white molecules rapidly vibrating back and forth. Thank you. P.S. I'm going blind and can't see too well at this time, so please forgive any grammatical or spelling errors.
No problem.
With that much of a content, that was amazingly well written. With only
Yes,
the only
absolutely.
error I saw was 14 foot, rather inches, but that was brilliantly written. I apologize for this being so long and detailed, and repeating myself if I have done so. You did not. P.S.S. As for the UFO, which looked like a house, I read the other day of another person who described the UFO he saw as looking like a house. Here's an article from the Belleville News Democrat. Very, very, very cool. That was absolutely incredible. I'm going to reach out to you, Tracy, and get in touch with you. That is amazing. Your experiences are absolutely compelling, full of information, like crazy amount of information. So I really appreciate you taking the time to catalog all of your experiences. And I'm happy to do more shows with you. I'd love to have you participate because your experiences are absolutely amazing.
These are the things that we look for. These are the things that we yearn for to have on the show.
Yeah,
these
absolutely.
Awesome, in-depth things. These experiences.
I mean, these are her experiences. Yeah. I assume these are her experiences that she's never shared before. Mm-hmm. So what an honor it is for us to be doing a show and somebody puts that level of trust into us. Like, here, I want you to tell my story. To me, that's about as big as it gets. I mean, that's the biggest honor I could hope to have in doing this show, is to have people place that kind of trust and confidence in us. So thank you, Tracy, so very much. I will be in touch with you because we have to have more discussions about this. Okay, so got a few more emails yet. This is almost an email show, which I love.
Well, yeah, but we don't start with the short one because we're almost at last break.
Okay, yeah.
Last break already.
This one's pretty short. This is from Linda in Minneapolis again, November 15th. Such an oddball thing happened this morning. You guys are going to start thinking we're nuts. Nah, you're not nuts. You are kind of nuts. You are kind of nuts. That's all.
You're among friends. It's okay.
Scott was up an hour before me this morning and was in the kitchen when I got up. I went downstairs, and while he started talking to me, I walked up to the opposite side of the island, and when I put my right toes down on the last step, the floor only under my foot vibrated fast and hard and made a rrrt sound. I literally jumped a foot straight up, and it was one of those old handshake buzzers in the slapstick shows of old. Scott said, "What was that?" And I said, "I don't know." And I described the vibration to him and heard the weird noise. He had heard the weird noise it had made when it vibrated the hardwood floor, and I had PJs on and was barefooted, no pockets, nothing. It's three-quarter inch oak flooring, no pipes or electrical stuffed under it or in the basement. There is nothing. So it's Mike again. I said that is one hell of a way to wake me up. Not very nice. They certainly do turn into angels when they cross over, and they certainly do keep their own personalities. Well, happy Friday. It's going to be quite a ride today. Yeah.
No doubt.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. We're going to head to our break, and we'll come back, and hopefully we'll get through. We'll definitely get through the last 2 emails here. But very cool. I appreciate it. Huh?
Just point out, unstar that one.
Well, I'm not going to because I'm going to contact this person.
Excellent. Great.
All right, guys. So don't go away. We're going to go to our last break here, and we'll be right back.
And remember, cigarette smoking causes paranormal experiences.
Yeah. How many stories have we covered? I went and had to smoke when I saw this. Don't smoke. All right, guys. We'll be right back. All right, ladies and gentlemen, last half hour of the show. It's been flying by, hasn't it, Don?
Flying. Sunder.
Like my personal Ed McMahon here.
Look, I have one job. Let me do it.
Well, we are back at it, and we've been cruising through a bunch of listener emails. Got 2 more to go here. I think. I just read this one, though, didn't I?
Yeah.
I just read this one. No.
No, yeah.
Oh, this is the other one. This is the other one that I was going to talk with you about.
Oh, that's, private thing.
Yeah, that's a private thing. I started because I was going to talk to you about it. So I guess we got one more. One more email to go, ladies and gentlemen. So I'm going to read this. This is from Brad from Australia.
Oh.
From Down Under.
Down Under.
He's a good guy. Nice guy. I've talked to him a few times online. But he spent some time and wrote out his experiences. And they have to do with his life down in Adelaide. I'm Brad from Adelaide, Australia. I was always of the opinion that UFOs and extraterrestrial beings were a nuts and bolts phenomena. Recently, I've been researching it and coming to realize that there's far more involved in this phenomena. Spirituality, consciousness, different vibratory existences, and other paranormal experiences coming into play. I agree, yeah. I recently downloaded an ET Contact app by Dr. Greer, and he's very much on the conscious communication with these higher beings. That's interesting. I've not heard of this app. I'll have to look into it. Okay. One weekend, I decided to go out in the backyard and use it and try to get a response. Well, I got some flashes, which could be classified as satellite flashes, but the thing that separated it for me was my communion mentally, asking for a sign, then flash, and I'm now starting to take this conscious stuff seriously. The second and most impressive experience for me happened a few months later. It was Sunday afternoon. My wife and I were building an IKEA do-it-yourself cabinetry with a bench top for our laundry, and I'm a graphic designer by trade, so using saws and drills isn't my strongest forte. I was out in the backyard cutting the wooden bench top to fit and the space, and I made a mistake with the saw, which made me really frustrated. I inherited my Scottish mother's temper.
Yes.
And as you do when you're frustrated and feel like giving up, you look up to the sky in despair. Well, at that moment, I see a white spherical object moving at a very fast rate. Sorry. I just stared, and this calmed me down immediately. I didn't have my phone on me as I was in work gear, so photographing or filming this was out of the question. I yelled out to my wife to look up, but she was busy playing with our German Shepherd to keep him clear of the saw. I took this as a sign, and I felt they were showing themselves to me after my contact attempts to make me realize, put into perspective, my overreaction to mistakes. This, of course, is my interpretation of the events. I might have just been a coincidence. I saw a UFO at that moment. Maybe one day I'll find out for sure. No, I think not. I don't know that I'm not really big into coincidences. I'm not saying that everything is pre-planned, but I think that the fact that you had just done this, you had just gotten this confirmation in the form of flashes, right. And then you're frustrated, and boom, you see a craft. I think that's got to be like some pretty outstanding odds against that being just chance. I don't know. I'm not saying it couldn't be, but I'm saying it doesn't seem to me to be likely. Now that could be just wishful thinking on my part, but just even rationally looking at it, what are the odds?
Right.
That you would have that confirmation, and then you're in this really crappy moment, and you look up and there's a craft that makes you feel better. Well, that seems pretty far out there to think that that's just an occurrence of chance. Could it be? Sure, it could be, but is it? I don't know. I think it's just as equally okay to keep an open mind and think that it's, that it is confirmation that you do perhaps have made a contact of sorts. I don't know what that means. I don't know if they start coming down and, are pulling you out windows or how that works, but I think it's really interesting. And I really, really appreciate you sharing that experience with us. That's just awesome. So what do you think of that, Don?
I think you're right. You get to a point where you just want to just shout obscenities to the sky, and after having all this these things during the day earlier, and you find anyhow. I think you're right. I think it was just kind of a setup to maybe get you thinking, to get you thinking about other things in that particular way. And I mean, what's to say they can't do that? I don't know. And when did he experience this?
That's a great question. It just says recently. So
Okay. Well, recently. Well, so that's as
last Sunday. It was Sunday
Oh.
afternoon that they were doing the IKEA cabinetry thing.
All right. Okay.
So I guess last week.
So here's the thing, though. Once you see one of these things, somebody, who was it that said once you have it involves so many different things, spirituality and things like this. It's like one thing leads to another.
Yeah.
And I don't believe that it's that much of a coincidence myself. So one thing's going to lead to another, and maybe you might have more experiences. But
That
if you
does seem to
do,
be the case, though,
yeah,
doesn't it?
Let us know.
Yeah, absolutely. Keep us informed if you have more of that. But it does seem to be the case. Like you experience one thing, it seems like more of those occurrences happen. And whether that's something that changed in us from that one experience, or if it's the will of some other force, I don't know. But it happens a lot in the Bigfoot field.
Yeah.
People see one, and then they end up having, in a lot of cases, sometimes have second encounters or more.
Or they start finding really good evidence because now they know what they're looking for.
Right, and I think that's part of it, is just learning how to see Bigfoot. Because I don't know, something about it. It's just like when people see it, it's like they understand that there's a way to see them. And I'm not talking about channeling and candles and stuff like that. I'm talking about just to get your eyes to recognize this is what they look like out here.
Right.
You think that something 8 or 10 feet tall and full of hair would just stick out like a sore thumb, but
It seems like something you have to experience to understand.
yeah,
I mean, let's face it.
yeah,
I've never had one.
right.
But you know what? I think that if I ever did, that it would possibly open up, and it's like, well, it's like doing acid for the first time.
The second
just
time is
have-
really cool.
You just have this like burst of realization,
Uh-huh.
and then you learn from there. So kind of the same thing, it's like, that's how you do it.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm going to do this, and we're going to continue doing this.
Very true. Very true. I think that's a very good point. So, thank you though for all of you tonight who have submitted your emails. It is nothing short of incredible. I've never had this many for one show, and so much content. And to me, that's just everything. That just means the world. It truly is one of my favorite things, is getting emails and getting connected to you guys, because
This is how we grow our community.
This is what you guys bring to the shows. Yeah. Look at my chat flying. How did I minimize that window again?
Yeah,
Send us your stories.
Yeah, it's just like it's trying to catch up.
It does. It must go on pause then when I blow it up that
That
window.
might be true, yeah.
Yeah, so it's just catching up. And oddly enough, if I type while it's doing that, the whatever I type and enter will go disappear with everything else. Like it puts it into a different time space.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Marilena, I hope you're feeling better.
What's wrong?
Oh, well, she had a mouth surgery the other day.
Oh.
And she's not feeling too good. But she says she'll survive, I'm sure.
Well, let's hope you're a fast mender. We'll send you lots of love and lots of energy. And ladies and gentlemen, I do want to put this out here this week. A well-known researcher in the Bigfoot community in Florida died, and it's Tim Fasano, passed away. And I just want to say that our prayers and love and support go out to him and his family as that he has a beautiful transition into the next world, and that his family is in a good place with his passing, or can find peace with that. It sounds like it was pretty unexpected, and our hearts go out to them. But we're just sending our love. It's certainly. I've watched many of his videos through the years. Right. He did he really was a neat guy. He's just every guy. He was just like your neighbor, and he was out there just loving it and putting his heart and soul into his research and Just seemed like a really nice guy. I never met him, never talked to him, but I did watch many of his videos through the years, and I appreciate his work. Thank you for all of your contributions, sir, wherever you are. Hope you're looking down on all of us and help us find the truth.
Yep.
All right.
So just real quick, Marilena says that she's a fast bender, so she'll be fine.
Yay, good. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I've got a mouth surgery in my future at some point, but so far I'm able to keep the
surgery, mister.
Yeah, I don't know if you could left hook this one off of me. It's an impacted wisdom tooth that broke, or no, the molar in front of it broke, and I've had it for the better part of a year now, but I've managed to keep the infections out of it now, so I've learned the trick. That's all I'm going to say. No, that wasn't it, actually. I imagine that might help. I just didn't know anything about clove oil, but I've used...
It tastes so good.
I don't want to give any medical advice. It's probably not good. Well, I did it because Brent on the Paranormal Portal did it. No. So I can't give medical advice, but I found a way to keep it from being infected, which is where all the pain was coming from. So
a good 100 proof.
Well, that probably wouldn't hurt neither, but you probably don't care about the infection after a certain point.
Well, I mean, it cleans as it goes down the gullet, you see.
Yeah.
Just give it a little swish.
It's like human Drano.
Kind of like this.
Yeah. Well. Anyway, it's just like that. The jug. All right. We do got some calls here, though. So let's get to this. Yeah, let's get to some calls here. First of all, we got a call from 720. You are on the air.
Hi. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I can hear you absolutely clear. Who are we talking
to? This is Mike.
Hi, Mike.
Hi, Mike. Welcome to the show. Glad to hear from you. What's going on tonight?
I just wanted to tell you guys the cool story you might want to hear.
Oh, absolutely, brother. Fill us in.
All right. It can sound crazy, but I'll tie in Big Lebowski, Black Mirror, and Black Eyed Kids.
Wow.
Kind of, I'll tie it all in.
Okay. By all means, please.
So, start off with the part in the Big Lebowski where he gets knocked out and kind of goes in that dance scene?
I've never seen the movie, actually, but I trust that it must be a good movie. I just never saw it. So, full disclosure.
All right. Yeah. But there's a song that starts on and he says, just dropped in to see what condition my condition was in.
Okay.
But as for the experience, this was back in a couple years ago, maybe about 5 years ago.
Uh-huh.
And I was going through some pretty good spiritual experiences, just kind of meditating, kind of having dreams and stuff, kind of just going the slow way at first. So it was pretty profound experience when I had it. But so I was kind of just sitting in my room for a good while. It was during the summer, so I didn't really have much to do. So
okay.
I was just staring in the reflection of my TV, and it kind of just looked like there was like my vision kind of started to glare over.
Uh-huh.
And it almost looked like there was almost like a clear screen in front of me. And
okay.
So I was kind of used to like meditating and stuff, kind of like kind of just let things pass through, so you kind of remember the experience instead of just kind of, going out.
Okay.
And so I went to go touch it, and it spooked me because I actually saw it wrinkled out.
Oh, really?
And yeah, it looked really crazy.
That's really crazy.
It spooked me. and so I kind of put my hand through and I kind of opened it, and I was looking at my TV, like I said. It was kind of like a black mirror.
Uh-huh.
And I saw a reflection of me, but it looked like almost like a little golem thing.
Oh, jeez. Yikes.
Yeah, it was so crazy. It looked just like me, but it had black eyes.
Oh, no.
And so, and in the song, he's like something about my soul. He's like, I saw something crawl out as I crawled in. That's exactly what I saw. I saw it was trying to crawl out, and it was trying to like put a black stone in me.
Oh, geez.
And I didn't let that happen.
Right.
Good for you.
So I kind of pushed it back in. Yeah, I pushed it back in, and I closed it, and I just, you know what I mean? Kind of, it has a, you know what I mean, an experience that kind of hard to tell people. And, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, but that's really profound.
Yeah, and also thought it was interesting because I heard somewhere in South America that sometimes the shamans are just like the older men, kind of like in the groups of people.
Okay.
They would do the yopo or something like that, the snuff. They kind of blow it up each other's nose.
Oh, okay.
And they would have wrestling matches because they would see demons, and they would try to knock the stones out of each other.
Oh.
I always thought that was pretty. Yeah, I always thought that was pretty interesting. I heard about that afterwards.
That's a wild correlation, huh?
Mm-hmm.
So something was trying to put, this black-eyed kid was trying to put the stone into you?
Yeah, it looked really strange. It looked just like me, but it was like, kind of looked like the little golem dude from Lord of the Rings.
Yeah. I totally understand what you're saying. That's just really, that's like so creepy. I've often wondered about that kind of stuff. Like, what are they doing? What are all these little things doing that are all around us? And what is their purpose in all this? And then you hear things like what you're saying, a black stone. Well, what the hell does that mean? You know, what's a black stone do? And that doesn't sound good, you know?
Exactly, and it's just, it's pretty easy just to have like, you know, a wild imagination, but it always gets interesting when you find like you said, these correlations in other people's experience.
Yeah, and it's nice too, because you got to be wondering, like, God, am I losing it? What am I seeing? This is really weird. How the hell can I explain this to anybody? But then to have that correlation come along and go, no, it's real. This is really something that people are talking about. Even though maybe a lot of people wouldn't understand that reference, it's still validation, and I think that's powerful.
Yeah, like so like Black Mirror. So like I always, ever since I had that experience and I heard about the show, I was like, oh, this is pretty interesting. Are they trying to summon something? That's kind of like the idea of scrying with Black Mirrors, is that you try to see something.
Mm-hmm. Right. It's just like a scrying mirror is often a black mirror. Yeah. That's really wild. But I'm glad that you caught it before it put that rock in you, whatever that means. I don't know.
Exactly. It wasn't happy either. It was pretty interesting. Then, so they say, then I guess like with they say with magic, like a good thing that works is that the more you dwell on something, the more it builds up. You know what I mean? So,
absolutely. Yeah.
So it can either, so regardless whether you're doing like a healing on somebody, you have to kind of do the healing and then kind of just let it go and let it happen.
Absolutely. Yep. Energy follows intention for sure. That's very true. But I really thank you, brother, for calling in and sharing that. I think that's incredibly interesting. And please, if anything else happens, keep us posted.
Just dropped in.
There you go.
All right, man. Well, take care. Have a wonderful weekend.
Yep. Good night, guys.
All right. Good night.
Wow.
That's really wild.
Naysay wanted him to describe the stone.
Oh, okay.
But, yeah.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. Maybe you can talk about it later.
Yeah. Well, it would be cool to understand a little more about the stone. I didn't think about talking about the description of it. But we got one more call, and this is area code 330. You're on the air.
Hi there. How you doing? Love you guys.
Oh my God, that was loud.
I haven't called in a while.
How you been?
I'm great in my new place. It's wonderful.
Oh, good.
It's so quiet out here, and whereas hot and cold running phenomena was very common at the old place.
Yeah.
This place is quiet.
Good. Peaceful, huh? Peaceful.
So it is peaceful.
Good.
And now I can actually concentrate on doing some other things besides dealing with paranormal all the time, every moment of my existence.
Right. Yeah. That there's more to your life. Yeah. Than doing battle.
Yeah, I'm like, oh God, thank you. Because there are some people that wish for this, wish to have something. I mean, I knew somebody that kept saying, "Where's mine? Where's mine?"
Yeah.
Like, God, I'd give you some of mine gladly.
Yeah. I hear you.
Have some.
It gets heavy.
Yep.
But now you get a break.
It does after a while.
Good. Good deal.
I'm free now.
Hooray.
Really, yeah, I do need a hot tub. At least I love one. But really being able to have a shower without anything happening is really nice.
Right.
Yeah.
And whereas before, stuff would happen sometimes.
Yeah, I know.
It's enough to make you crazy, and you can't tell people about it. And I just I have been finding so many people, though, if I am careful how I do it and don't scare them. So many people will admit that they have had experiences.
Yeah, I think most people have.
But they're afraid.
Yes.
And I hear that all the time, and they've had some really deep stuff happen, and I get so tired of that. I'm so tired. When are we going to grow up and be over that as a society? There are other countries where it's not, and other societies where it's not that way.
Sure. Well,
But, yeah, I look at it and I say there are all these people with stories to tell.
Sure.
You would have a line of people with stories.
I hope so.
Miles long, yeah. I mean, now here where I am, I'm meeting some people and have some people flirting with me too.
Okay.
And when I get to talking with them, though, once everybody else is gone and it's quiet, and if they keep asking me what I do and what my interests are and so on, I will eventually say paranormal investigations.
Nice. Very good.
That I'm a medium, that I'm going to that I go to a spiritualist church, and then they feel comfortable enough after that, and everybody has a story, and they're all scared to tell it. All of them. They're afraid that people will either think they're crazy or tell them that they're going to hell.
Yeah. There's definitely the dogma. We got about 2 minutes left. So, was there something that you wanted to point out for this call?
Well, yeah, I did. I'm definitely along in solidarity with the upset about Kubler-Ross and how anybody like that is treated.
Yeah, it's
basically.
Unfortunate. Yeah, I agree.
It got me to thinking about it.
Yeah.
And it got me to thinking that, some of the people I talk to, I tell them some of my stories, and they go, "You need to write a book." And I go, "You're probably right."
Yeah.
Oh, maybe I'll have time now, finally, eventually.
Well, there you go. That's great. That's a great idea.
But yeah, it's like, and I'm keeping an eye. Is anybody else keeping an eye on the? I can't remember. Was it the Nazca mummies? The three-fingered and three-toed mummies that they found.
Yep. I haven't really been following too much, but I know that there's a lot of energy building around that. So hopefully they'll come up with some irrefutable proof.
I sent you a link.
Yep, I watched both of those. Yep.
It was Gaia who did that. So I think we need to keep an eye on that because
sure.
Anytime you find anything like that,
that's pretty huge.
It's a step in the right direction for us because it's like, yes, we're not alone. Yes, there were other things besides us. Now let's get over this.
Yeah. Now I gotta let you go.
So,
I gotta let you go, dear, because we're out of time. But love you bunches.
Right.
I'm glad your home is going great, and thank you for calling in.
Well, that's all I wanted to say anyway.
Excellent.
All right, my dear.
Love
Have a
you.
great day.
Okay.
See ya.
Bye.
Okay, bye.
All right, so ladies and gentlemen, stick around. Paisley Wild's coming up next. The Spaces Between.
And then after that,
Deb Varner's her guest.
That's right.
And then after that, don't forget to check out the Duke World Bigfoot Radio coming up on TFRlive.com. Make sure you get to the chat room, TFRlive.com/chat. Get a username and password, and you can join Duke in there while the show is playing and get into the discussion. Duke gives a lot of behind the scenes about these shows live in the chat room. So love you all. Be good, be kind, be nice. Take care of each other. Help each other out. Find the magic in every day. And remember to laugh as much as you can. Don, anything?
Bye.
Okay. All right. Good night, guys.